Me?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank
Good
you so
evening.
much. Hello.
Yes, hello, good evening.
Hello, Hala.
Marhaba.
Thank you. Marhaba. Thank you
Okay.
for joining.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for this. I think it will be an interesting webinar because
Yeah.
we all, I think we are يعني going through this imposter phenomenon يعني all the time with this PhD, but I call it a puzzle. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is a puzzle. I
Definitely,
am Hala.
definitely.
Yes, I am Hala Taha from Sudan. I am a PhD candidate. I work at Blue Nile National Institute for Communicable Diseases, Sudan, الجزيرة. مدني يا دكتورة نيس.
Nice to have you, Hala. Thank you
Uh,
so much for joining. I
okay.
hope you enjoyed
Yes,
today's session.
yes.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you
Okay.
so much. So I think now we could start. I'll hand the mic to Dragonfly, and please go ahead. Looking forward to this session. Thank you.
Thanks so much. So let me just change my own view. Nice. So today we're going to talk about imposter phenomenon in academic environment specifically. So thanks so much for having us. I am here to speak for Dragonfly. Why are we doing this today? Is because it's the World Mental Health Day, and Dragonfly now for the second time in a year in a row organizes Dragonfly Global Migration, which basically means more than a dozen events organized today, 20 other events organized on different days around October 10th. And for this, we are very grateful to our many partners. Some of them are platinum, like Sean Buddy, Deidre Byrne. Some are premier partners like Arnold and Mabel, Beckman Foundation, Greg and Bell, Strike Leather, and many host site sponsors like Columbia, University of Albany, New Mexico State University. And then we also have Emerald Dragonfly sponsors. We have Amethyst Dragonfly sponsors, and many supporters. So this is just a short overview of a huge thanks, basically, because none of this would be possible without them, really. And before we start talking more about Imposter, I just have to express a short disclaimer that Dragonfly Mental Health is not a healthcare provider organization. Therefore, the information provided today does not qualify as medical advice and does not substitute to actually speaking to medical professionals. So we're going to talk a little bit about my background, Dragonfly mental health introduction, and then what we know about imposter, and then imposter phenomenon specifically in academia and research. And finally, I hope to have a group discussion on this topic. My background is, well, I've completed my master's in Germany. I am originally Serbian. So my master's is at the German Cancer Research Center in Heidelberg. My PhD was at the Max Delbruck Center in Berlin. And yeah, my motivation for advocacy really, today I'm inspired because I'm speaking to you from Serbia. So I think people who grew up in war regions or post-war regions really have no excuse but to deal with mental health and to advocate for better mental health. And on top of that, my migration to Germany to do research also spiked my interest in mental health advocacy, especially in academia. So Dragonfly is a nonprofit that is founded in April 22. It's really a vast network, 500 people from 50 countries. And the purpose of it is to deliver trainings and workshops and mental health talks peer-to-peer, so from academics to academics. What Dragonfly does has 5 domains of excellence and basically delivers discrete programs, comprehensive program modules, and consulting and research. So a lot of people who are part of Dragonfly are actually still active researchers in the field of mental health and mental health disease as well. So our programs are custom and effective. There's been 420 programs delivered, 65,000 academics engaged and over 35 countries impacted. And now we're really happy actually to be in Africa, because if you look at this map, it's not super represented. So to begin with mental health, we have to have a little bit of an intro to what mental health is and what is it is not. So basically, a well-balanced mental health well-being is a state where we can easily bounce from any stressors, go back. And then the state of distress is when it is much harder to actually bounce back to some balance and neutrality. And then the phase after distress would actually be disease. And post-disease comes crisis. This is really emergency situations where immediate medical and psychiatric, psychological health is necessary. So to give you some examples for this whole spectrum, for example, anxiety is a diagnosed disease, and it is medically seen as such. Burnout is an example of a state syndrome that is not really a disease, and it lies somewhere between distress and disease. And then what we're going to talk about today, imposter phenomenon, is a little bit ambiguous because it has not been put anywhere. It is not a disease. It has been studied, and we're going to talk a little bit about this now. So what is imposter phenomenon? Imposter phenomenon, or sometimes also described as imposter syndrome, is not a recognized psychiatric disorder. It is also known in the literature as imposter phenomenon, fraud syndrome, perceived fraudulence, or imposter experience. What does imposter phenomenon mean to you? Maybe a good point of brief discussion with yourself, really, of what if you have any precondition knowledge about this state. What we know from research, or how the research has begun, really, was first described in 1978, and it was described as a phenomenon that only white women experience, specifically middle and upper class American women. So it was described as a state that high achieving individuals experience despite their objective successes, where they fail to basically internalize their accomplishments and have persistent self-doubt and fear of being exposed as a fraud or imposter. This may be due to individual factors, or could be a natural response to systemic oppression, racism, and repressive system. So you can already see that this original description that it belongs to only white, middle, and upper class American women really failed to encompass imposter phenomenon. The prevalence of imposter phenomenon varies widely. It is around 30% in medical and pharmacy students, 22 to 60% of physicians and physicians in training, 57% in cross-career levels in medical education setting. So medical professionals have high prevalences. And then it varies really widely between 9 and 82%, largely depending on the screening tools and the cutoff used to assess symptoms, and was particularly high among ethnic minority groups. So as opposed to the original description, it is actually mostly affecting people who are intersectional in their background, common among both men and women, and across a range of age groups from adolescents to late-stage professionals. It is sadly often comorbid with actual clinical diagnostic diseases like depression and anxiety, and is associated with impaired job performance, impaired or low job satisfaction, and burnout among various employee populations, including clinicians. So there's no published studies evaluating treatments or standalone imposter syndrome, of a standalone imposter. Examples of imposter syndrome. So so you maybe recognize yourself. Is basically there were numerous diplomas and colleagues and accolades validating someone's professionalism, esteemed positions. There's praise from supervisors, from their peers, and yet this person does not believe in their merits. They believe that success is the result of luck or happenstance and not due to talent or qualifications. They feel like they're deceiving people and they fear they don't genuinely understand the work that they're doing. And while imposter syndrome is not a medical diagnosis, it can have a profoundly negative impact on the quality of life and actually on the mental health. How imposter phenomenon and success come together is the feeling that basically one's successes, if scrutinized, would be found to be invalid, wrong, or useless. So the feeling that one's success is the result of an accident or happenstance, luck, has not been earned and is not deserved. For example, sure, I got into grad school, so I'm a PhD student, but everyone else deserves to be here, and actually I'm here by mistake, by luck, because of some sort of policy. And it also impacts, or basically invites shame and low self-esteem. There's this thought that I'm here by accident, and fears of being exposed that lead to feelings of shame. So this basically deems the self-esteem of this person unstable and depends heavily on the capability to demonstrate constantly achievements and high quality achievements. For example, I only have the right to be here if I'm achieving, and this is common in academia. So because of this complete distorted idea of self-esteem, people with imposter phenomenon present facades. This constant basic background anxiety is rooted in fear and shame. Fear of being exposed, so seen as who you really are, which is someone who doesn't belong there. Shame of being somewhere they don't belong. Believing that everyone else knows how to behave and belongs here except for them. So everyone is doing perfect, everyone is doing fine, but I am failing. So even if they appear to belong, it is only because they are pretending. So keep in mind that, especially in academia, these are very, very intelligent people. So they can also hide things very, very intelligently. So they can communicate with others and appear agreeable, smiling, nodding, happy, functionally happy. But actually, it can feel like a performance. This is also very common in depression and anxiety. Constant background belief that they lack some important, like key knowledge or skill that others might have. And if this deficiency is revealed, there is a fear that something terrible will happen. Like they will be dropped out of the program, they will be sent back to their home country. So external validation, an example is they only say that because they feel sorry for me. Like they say something nice, like a constant desire or need to receive confirmation that they really have the right to be where they are. Obsession with external validation. And I think this is, we're going to come back later to this, but this can often come and be exaggerated with migration and change of settings. So if one changes parameters of validation or how validation is actually accounted for, then this can be exacerbated. For example, changing culture. So what they say versus what you think, they could say that you're doing great, but you can think that they only say this because they're sorry for me, and they can't really mean that. I bet they're already looking for someone to replace me. They only think that because they haven't seen through me yet. So this external validation relieves the anxiety, but only temporarily and never permanently. It's like a self-feeding, never-ending loop where you get validation, but then you need more validation because it's only a temporary relief. Imposter phenomenon and perfectionism. Yeah, this is very deeply correlated. So basically the belief that perfection is an attainable goal that I have. So this is someone with non-imposter syndrome who says, I have good and bad days. Overall, I'm okay. So I am not perfect. I fail sometimes. And imposter syndrome person would say, if I am perfect, then no one will be able to judge me. So therefore, because there is this incessant need for validation, validation is achieved, right, theoretically, perfection leads to constant validation, but there is obviously a jump in deduction where like nobody's really perfect. So it's unattainable. So the danger of imposter syndrome is really like any other neurotic kind of state, is reduction in quality of life and a person's life is not as enjoyable or full as it could be. So this is very evident in academia when learning. We constantly, as academics, have to learn new skills. For example, let's say I want to learn how to write grants. So you can notice that if you're learning something new, are you over-identifying the need to be perfect, like at it immediately? Like, is this key? New activities or skills can easily turn into damaging perfectionism or striving to prove something to someone external, rather than focusing on intrinsic value and natural learning curve. This is then again a little bit ideal speaking, because I also feel like in academia, often the pressures to learn something quick are high. So we also are forced to learn quick. And sometimes the natural learning curve is maybe not as natural. If I don't write the perfect grant, I'm worthless. It doesn't matter how good I am at other things. And also, what is a perfect grant? But this is basically how someone with imposter syndrome thinks. So basically, my question to you and your audience, your community, is really what sounds familiar to you. So there are these indicators of imposters phenomenon, like shame and unstable self-esteem, wearing a mask to hide your true lack of competence, seeking external validation, perfectionism. So this is maybe my favorite slide in the whole presentation, because it's really critical of society. The origin of imposter phenomenon is unknown, and it may be related to lived experiences that devalue a person's intrinsic worth during their upbringing, trauma, or environmental conditions. It can also be connected to innate personality traits such as neuroticism. However, it is also tied to the modern culture's link between productivity and worth, and actually capitalistic view of the world. So this is why imposter phenomenon is so hard to uncouple from societal issues and societal structures and actually systems that we live in. And all of this is exacerbated in academia, because in academia, not only that our productivity and our worth are tied, actually our identity and our worth and our productivity are tied. So oftentimes academics life basically exacerbate this idea that we are devoted to our profession, and that our labor is not actual skilled labor. It is like it's something that we chose, and we should be happy to even be there, right? So societal focus on productivity is basically that many modern cultures, family, place more value on products over experiences. So this is maybe some of you have lived through this experience, where self-identified contributors include parent expectations 72%. So an example is there's a child who plays the piano so well, and one version of addressing this to the child is, we will send you to a music school for talented children, and you will master this skill and become a famous musician, right? So this is how you could foster imposter phenomenon. And on the other hand, another attitude towards it would be, you play the piano so well, but do you enjoy playing? Do you enjoy learning more about it? And I support you in choosing to do things that you enjoy, and not only the things that you are just talented in. In academia, it is estimated that 20% of university students suffer from imposter phenomenon. This is their source, and up to 95% of female researchers experience moderate or severe symptoms of imposter phenomenon. So commonly, it is really unstated and unrecognized, and it feels like everyone seems to know what they're doing, and I don't know what's going on. In academia, there is this constant comparison of academic achievements and grades with your peers. So for example, I used to have the best grades in school, but now I'm the worst in my class. In research, there is constant comparison of research achievements, and this is often promoted in academia. And this is actually very problematic, because as we coexist in some sort of micro environment, a team in academia, oftentimes we are at different levels of a project. We are also at different levels of education. So you have postdocs at the end, PhDs at the beginning, PhDs at the end, postdocs at the beginning. and it is very hard to compare. Also, people come from very different backgrounds, different privileges, different educations. So, for example, my peers have published so many papers. All my PhD students need to publish high-profile papers to graduate. It's something we often hear from the management, sadly. In academia, there is also constant comparison of efforts, which is an extra thing. All my colleagues were harder than me. I must work harder than everyone because I'm not as smart as them. So there's this essential lack of self-esteem that is then topped up by this constant comparison of efforts, and PIs who would say things like, my other PhD students work on the weekends. I heard once from a PI, not a PI, actually it was postdocs in one research institute, that if you don't get hospitalized during your PhD, did you even do it? So the toxicity of comments and microaggressions is really high. In academia, failure again is, well, it's essential. So basically the problem is that what happens when there is a sudden unexpected failure on my academic path and I need to be perfect. I thought things were going fine, but then I got destroyed by supervisors during my defense. Moreover, financial instability is compared to the peers who did not choose academic path. This often happens, especially, it depends on the culture, but in certain cultures, the differences in financial stability are very high, like in the US, for example. So this can also lead to a sense of lack of value. Your former classmates already have a family and bought a house. Credit, giving too much credit to others and not enough to yourself. So this is very common in academia as well. Nothing I did would have been possible without the constant support of my postdoc, even though 95% of my project was done solely by me. We tend to exaggerate a little. What people say really impacts how we think. So words have weight. So these are some sentences that really stem from toxic academic environments, such as a properly trained monkey could do a PhD, maybe a properly trained AI could do a PhD nowadays. Is that really all you've done since our last meeting? I had many more papers than that when I was at your stage. What's really key here is that failure in academia is inevitable. Failure as a failed experiment, as a learning process. So if you evaluate yourself only through achievements, you will never really feel like you have a solid foundation. Failure is a part of research, a part of the job. And now, impact on diversity. Well, as I said already at the beginning when we define imposter phenomenon, there is often environmental, systemic, or institutionalized discrimination. So imposter phenomenon affects people with specific backgrounds, or I would say minorities, but there's also a group here which is not a minority, such as women. It threatens diversity basically because it is one of the explanations for higher dropout rate among marginalized groups in academia. And there is, as I said, words have weight, and impact of microaggressions cannot be ignored. So basically, in an academic environment, there are commonly remarks that seem harmless. Some call them microaggressions, but then when repeated daily and in all aspects of life, not only at the bench, but also at the bank, at the post office, at the wherever you go, they have a cumulative effect. They basically serve as a constant reminder that members of marginalized groups are less than, promoting their imposter syndrome. So for women, this can be often things like you're too pretty to be a scientist, or they can experience sexual harassment by a PI or lab colleague. For BIPOC, you're the affirmative action hire, you're so articulate. And then on the streets or even at the institute, they could be stopped and questioned by the police or security. This actually happened in my previous institute, people. And then people who are queer and belong to LGBTQ+, that is so gay, being told that gender queer clothing choices are unprofessional, etc. To international scientists, so these are some of the worst sentences here, but why are you complaining? Don't Asian people love homework and things like this? So basically, cultural communication differences with managers. And then for first generation scientists, something that's really the socioeconomic background of people in academia is the least, in the Western world, of my experience, the least talked about. So it's just assumed that you should have thought about money before pursuing your education, and also assuming the students can work for free and defer reimbursement, because the majority comes from higher economic background, basically stance. And then for people with disability, things like, are you using a wheelchair for sympathy? I've seen you walk. And also systemic refusal to provide aids, such as visual aids, because only one person needs it. Another factor is immigration. So for a lot of people, imposter phenomenon is exacerbated by actual fear of exile. My contract will be terminated and I will have to go back home without a degree. And also I will lose my visa because my visa is tied to my job. This associated anxiety can physically disguise itself as fatigue, procrastination, and even substance abuse. This applies to general imposter phenomenon. So let's talk a little bit about what helps. First steps are really just awareness and acceptance, noticing and accepting. Fighting imposter phenomenon by ignoring it or numbing it is really never productive or sustainable. Reinforces really that this person is not strong or good enough to stop thinking this way. So because they keep ignoring it. For example, is trying to put out a fire with gasoline. So we actually need to stop fighting it, but more like acknowledge it. Psychotherapy, in particular, long-term and non-linear, may help. But here is a caveat, basically, now I will learn something and then I will become better in therapy, right? Because from therapy, I can become better, more successful, more perfect. And this is actually not how therapeutic progress works. So it's again the same trap of I'm not good enough now, but I will learn and then I will be good enough, which is not really true. Identification of emotions and logic is really essential for dealing with imposter phenomenon. Approaches that teach people to identify their feelings, where the feelings come from, to make logical interpretations about them and make better decisions, recognizing one's own emotions as they arise, evaluating the real needs or insecurities behind these emotions, engaging logically and compassionately to identify what you actually need, and of course, connection and community. So one thing that's really interesting about imposter phenomenon is that it's present at every level of hierarchy of every industry, basically. So imposter begins to understand that they really live among other either imposters or imperfect people. So when speaking to others, you often discover that many, if not most people, feel the exact same way or have felt this way in some way, and maybe can even share this. So actually sharing failures can really help build connection, community, and alleviate this isolation that imposter phenomenon imposes on a person. Employing the principle of sufficiency. So if you learn one thing from this talk, I hope you remember this, that we don't have to be perfect, we just have to be enough in work, in a capitalist labor system. So using the principle of sufficiency, which is basically the opposite of principle of perfectionism or ideality. So there is no such thing as an ideal or perfect person. We try to cultivate a feeling of sufficiency, of good enough, and reduce the imposter symptoms over time. So I'm good enough to do my job. I'm already here, therefore I deserve to be here, right? Some skills I'm good at, some skills I'm not as good at, pretty much just like everybody else. And then I can choose where to put energy and time, which skills I want, which skills I don't. And yeah, very importantly, like in any team environment, it has to be promoted by team leads and mentors. So basically, we inherited this imposter phenomenon, and it's also supported by poor leadership. So if leaders were more supportive of people's failures and more inspiring and strengthening humans, then we would not have such a sense of profound isolation, lack of self-esteem, etc. So honoring our interdependence and relationship to work and research, basically seeing that all labor is skilled labor, especially all academic labor. First of all, it's labor. It is not some sort of idea of a mad scientist who devoted their whole life to their research. This is not really reality anymore. We don't have the privileges to do this. The work of emotional labor is seen and shared. We ask for help when we need it and offer help when we can, and recognize that work and research involves long haul collaborative work. So summary of what helps basically is knowing the signs and symptoms, also knowing you're not alone. There is a whole world of academics, former academics, PIs, directors of institutes who have gone or are going through the same thing you're going through. Reminding yourself that you earned your position and stop comparing your work with others. Accept congratulations on your achievement and really celebrate them, because I feel like in academia we celebrate less than in other industries actually. Replacing perfectionism with the principle of sufficiency. And of course, staying kind to yourself in this whole process. Track your successes. Talk to your mentor, PI, and colleagues about how common failure is. Build a network of support. Try therapy if possible. And work with others to acknowledge and correct systemic repression that contributes to imposter phenomenon. Thank you so much. I would like to open the discussion to you. And I'm actually done with the talk. Thank you. Yeah, and I thought maybe we could, of course, I invite you to fill out the survey, which will then tell us, inform us how this experience has been for you, and also improve Dragonfly services in the future. Yeah, but I'd also like to hear from your community and like what did resonate, and any thoughts.
Thank you so much. I think I don't know. I'm sure that this talk have touched so many of us, because as you said, this is quite common than we think. And I'm talking from my personal experience as a researcher coming from Sudan, a country that has been, one of the maybe lowest income countries in Africa, a country that has been associated with terrorism, that has been under a lot of sanctions throughout the years. So you really feel like you're way behind. You're way behind. And I felt this way when I traveled to France to do my PhD. I did my master's in Sudan. But when I moved to France, I really had this overwhelming feeling that like I'm not enough. There's no way that I'm going to compete with everyone in France. There's so much advanced. I'm so far behind. Again, the fear of the looks of pity, especially that during my PhD, my country was going through a lot of turmoil, and a war started, and it was quite a lot. But then, actually, when I gave myself a chance, I found that I'm good enough. I'm actually even better, than some of the students, because I had a lot to lose, as you said. You lose your visa, you lose your, for example, for me, my university was the one that gave me the scholarship to go. So I felt like I had a lot to lose. So I think this automatically translates to you working harder and proving yourselves. But it also makes you see that you're not that far behind. You can, like, with just a little bit of work, you can catch up, and you would even be better than other students who are local to that communities. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think we need to hear that, and we need to talk about that more. We're always afraid to talk about our mental health feelings, and it's also frustrating to see that in psychology, this is like imposter phenomenon is not recognized as a mental health issue. I don't know what they're waiting for, but it is definitely an issue. Yeah. So thank you so much. Thank you so much.
No worries. I don't think it's not recognized. It is not in the DSM, basically. It is not categorized as a medical disease because they don't know where to put it, because I think because it is so caused by societal structures. So it almost feels unfair to the person to say, oh yeah, you have this disease, it's called imposter syndrome, but actually has nothing to do with you. It's only because you were born and you're placed here. Like, so I think that if I understand the clinics a little bit, it's that usually people assign diseases as something that's intrinsically to this human. Yeah, of course, it's systemic and everything is, but there is something either genetic, biological, environmental, epigenetic, whatever, that contributes to the development of a mental health disorder. Yeah. But yeah, it's absolutely present and it absolutely needs to be talked about. And I hope that this talk at least made people think about, oh, okay, like, can I be a little bit kinder to myself if I am going through any of these aspects?
Yeah, I think this is exactly what I tell my students. Be kind to yourself. I think like this is the solution, you know. Be kind to yourself. I think we have a couple of hand raised. We have Malik.
Yeah, hi everyone.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Lemis, and thank Tijana for this presentation. I think everyone, as Lemis mentioned, I think all the people attending this presentation felt themselves in this presentation, and at that point, a lot of people talking about this imposter phenomenon, but that do not have the nomination, the exact one. So everyone talking about something wrong is going on, but they do not have the, let's say, the scientific word or the real description of it. And as you mentioned, in academia, is quite the prevalence is quite high because there is a lot of competition on it. And as Lemis mentioned, is the competition became higher into if we move from a country to a country. I mean, like for ourselves, I'm from Tunisia. If we move and from LMC to another country, it's you have to prove yourself and to be more effective and more perfect than the other, even you are working on the same thing or the same spot. And I think we also, I think Tijana, you maybe missed mentioning this imposter phenomenon or syndrome from academic people into the society, because I mean sometimes people look to scientists and PhD as a genius one, and in this spot people feel themselves are not, I mean, they're not as people saw them. I mean, they give them a lot of congrats and those stuff, and PhD students and PhDs sometimes feel themselves they are not as good as other people saw them, especially in society and family and all this stuff, and they always have to be at the top level of success for them, and that's why the impact of the imposter phenomenon is more into society than academic themselves. Thank you so much for this presentation, and good luck with your work with the Dragonfly.
Thank you so much. I think Hala, I also have your hand raised. Please go ahead.
Yes. Okay, thank you so much. That was very inclusive. Okay, excuse me. I just want to say that, okay, imposter syndrome. Actually, I have a different experience. During my master, I spent some training period in Trieste, Italy. And actually, I did not feel this. I did not feel that I am not enough or anything, or this. I did not go through this. Actually, there's a problem in the lab that the lab manager and the colleague could not solve or know what is the origin of this problem. I did find the origin and solve the problem. So that gave me a very high score, if I can say. So I have a different experience, but even if I am in a very competitive community or environment, I must look at certain things. I'm speaking as a person living with multiple sclerosis. I know that I have limits, physical limits. Sometimes I go through this fog cognitive impairment and all these things. So I know that I have limits. I just try to fit myself within the system. Okay, I have my highest energy in the morning. I do the hardest work in the morning. During the day, I take some rest. Of course, I have to speak to the director, to the manager that, okay, I cannot work the whole day. I can only work certain hours from this time to this time. And also, yani, why do we have to be so harsh on ourselves? You do what you can do. And there are always options. If you cannot do this, you can do another thing. Doesn't mean that you are not enough. It means that you are fitting yourself in the thing that suits you only. That's it. Thank you. Yes.
I think it's really nice that if you have an environment that respects you, it sounds like you do, and that's very nice, because then you can say, okay, these are my boundaries. I need you to respect them. This is how I work. This is how I'm most productive. And they allow you. This is very encouraging, because some environments are not like that. Sadly.
Yes, and
Most
of course, it
environments,
depends on the environment. But of course, if you did not find this environment, actually, you just leave. Find another environment, even if it is virtual environment. I think one of the biggest challenges is how to navigate through this digital transformation era. Although it is on one hand it is a challenge, but on the other hand it's some kind of solution for people like me, for my condition, for example. Yeah. Yes.
We
Yeah,
should.
I think
It would be really interesting to actually have people with different conditions or preferences or physical states that diagnose also that impact, and talk about how did they find a way to fit into academic system, because I feel like academia is actually in some sense pretty flexible in the work regime. At least in Germany it was for me, but then still it sounds like you really optimize your workflow, and this is amazing. Because I know people without any diseases who struggle with it, so I'm very impressed actually. Would love to learn more actually about this. Maybe
Thank
another
you.
time, another workshops.
Thank you. I did not go. Yani, I did not have this. I had it the hard way, because I went through a lot of relapses and very serious conditions. So I had the lesson eventually. Yeah.
yeah, and I think this brings me to something that you've said during your talk is having a community. I think we usually don't have the choice to choose the community that we work within, but I think we could also try and find the community that we could be comfortable in talking with and communicating, you know, our issues and what we're feeling with, because we cannot change everyone. You know, this is the truth. You know, some people thrive on making others suffer and making others feel less and feel not worthy. But I think having support groups is something. It's something that's very important. So I was wondering, in Dragonfly, are you thinking of maybe creating a place for these support groups to come, for people to come and you know, discuss how they feel, maybe discuss their experience on how they were able to mitigate these feelings and you know, really surpass especially the other people that try to bring you down. Yeah.
So there is, Dragonfly has a monthly cafe that's virtual.
Mm.
There's usually themes, and it's for Dragonfly volunteers. I think if you sign up to be a volunteer, you can have access to a community and also Slack channel with a lot of sub communities and things like this. And I think that because like it's first of all a community, second of all a nonprofit, right? So I think if there is enough interest that people would be open to organizing more things. Marta maybe knows more. Or yeah, but I can send you information about the Dragonfly. First of all, how to register as volunteers. Second of all, also how to it's on their website actually. Everything about the monthly virtual cafe. Also, you can do it within your community. You can start that. I think at my previous research institute, as I was leaving, we started, I organized a workshop for peer, it wasn't alone, I did this with a colleague. We organized basically peer support kickoff workshops where people would then say, okay, I like tennis, I want a tennis group, or I care about mental health, or I'm a parent, or it was the most diverse thing, really. Like, it could be anything you care about and it's your cause, and you set it as agenda, you find a few people, you start the community, and then there's certain guidelines of how to maintain the community, right? But this is also, I feel like virtual is very nice, but I also think it's nice to have something on campus like this, a few people that you also have in person that you can meet, and then you can moderate with the virtual, of course.
Yeah, but like
Mhm.
Dragonfly is not thinking about maybe expanding this beyond the group of volunteers, because you know, many individuals, maybe they cannot volunteer, they don't have the
Yeah.
knowledge or the maybe the
Yeah.
courage to be a volunteer to speak out, but they
Yeah.
would really love that support community. And of course, everyone could try and create their own support communities, but I think having something that is more organized, and when people see that it's a global issue, you know,
Yeah,
it
understand.
really, yeah, it really makes
I
a
can tell
difference.
you from my experiences, to be a volunteer is not such a big workload. Like, you're not given tasks automatically just because you're sign up as a volunteer. It's kind of, you become a volunteer as sort of an initiation into the community, but then you take on whatever you like from this. There is a core group of people who organize things, who are kind of leading a lot of things, but then a lot of people come and organize their own, like, spearhead their own initiatives. So I really don't think that there should be anybody here should be shy of joining the volunteer group, because there is not going to be any, like, first of all, you don't need any pre-knowledge except for being an academic. That's the only qualifier, and you just need to reach out. Really, that's kind of, reach out, fill out a form, say something about yourself, and then you have access to people all around the world, and you can even just chat with people, basically, because it's through Slack. Yeah,
Perfect.
I think the cafe is a good place to also bring this idea about. Or maybe more cafes, kind of.
Exactly, expand it. Yeah.
Yeah. Multiple coffees a day.
Okay, are there any other comments, question? Anyone would like to share their experience with imposter phenomena and how they were able to survive? I think one more thing that we should remind ourselves with is that we should be the ones to break the cycle. We know that we all had supervisors, that were tough on us, that, maybe colleagues that were not so kind to us. But I think we could start with ourselves and be, supportive towards our colleagues. Eventually, no matter where you are in your career right now, eventually you are going to be a supervisor. You are going to be a PI, you are going to be a department head, maybe you're going to be a university president. So maybe take this with you as you move through your career ladder, and maybe think of it as treat others the way you hoped to have been treated, not the way that you were treated. And hopefully this would break the cycle that we have now. Yeah.
Yeah, I love this. I think that sometimes it's hard to treat people kindly when they keep treating you unkindly, but that you can, I think sometimes our focus is also too much on our immediate environment, like our PI, our colleagues, and everything. And what helped me was sometimes living with people cross departments from other groups, other teams. So, like, and seeing that there's so many different kind of social dynamics, different teams, that in some places I feel much better. As Hala said, like leave, like really, we don't leave enough in academia. We stay because our visa tied to this, because we love the project, because of so many things. The most successful people I know in academia have literally not chosen the project, they've chosen the team. And they have been happy their whole life because they chose the they chose to be emotionally and psychologically safe. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like, no matter how interesting the project is, how intriguing the resources that you have available, but then if the environment is toxic, then you will not benefit. You definitely will not benefit because you'll be thinking of when can I leave, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. Hala,
Hala,
I
you
wanted to
have...
say something.
Yeah.
Yes. I can't agree more. Yeah, Dr. Lamis. Yes. Other thing that, okay, don't focus only on the path of academia. You have to find other activities, hobbies. Even you have just have a walk in nature, do some painting, read something different book. Just try to تفصل, just to stop to do
Dissociate yourself.
yes, activity, something different. Just take yourself away from this environment, toxic environment, whatever environment, and when you feel better, you come back. Sometimes it takes a long time, sometimes it takes short time, but you have to dissociate yourself. Definitely, you need to do that. Yes.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Same.
Okay, Tijana, do you have any final words that you'd like to say?
No. I mean, you can, anybody here, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can, you have my email, you can share my email. If anybody wants some resources or books or anything, or wants to just connect ever, I'm really, it was a pleasure talking to you. I wish I'd seen you all in person. It would have been nice to see faces.
Let's hope one day this will happen.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This was a very interesting session, and a session that we need to have, much more of, to be honest, and hopefully we could have much more of. So thank you so much, and thank you for all of you who have joined us, and we hope to see you in other sessions. Thank you all so much. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
مع
Bye-bye.
السلامة.
مع السلامة.
مع السلامة.